All right, call the meeting to order, 6:30. I have a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the agenda.
And the draft agenda of the committee and dated the 19th day of July 2023 be hereby adopted as.
All in favor? Thank you. And can I have a mover and a seconder accepting the minutes of the previous meeting, please?
Steve and Sarah. The minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of June 21st, 2023 be adopted as circulated.
All in favor? Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. It's declared now. Seeing none, I'll move on. Chair's remarks. Welcome the public. This is a public meeting to hear comments and questions from any members of the public regarding the planning applications as outlined in the agenda. As required under the Ontario Planning Act, this is a statutory public meeting being held by the Planning Advisory Committee prior to making a recommendation to Council for approval or refusal of the proposed application. The Advisory Committee reviews all comments and submissions received prior to this evening's meeting, as well as those comments received during the course of tonight's meeting. No decisions have been made on any application before the committee, and all presented information will be taken into consideration if and when a final recommendation is made. The Planning Advisory Committee is made up of 5 citizen appointees from the municipality, along with 2 members of council. The members are as follows. Frank, would you start us off, please? We're introducing ourselves.
Frank Corville.
I'm Lauren Roy Akers and I'm on council.
John Simmons.
Greg Curtin, staff representative.
Terry Kelly on council.
I'm Carrie Hanselman, clerk for the municipality.
Steve Austin. Bill Boak.
Sarah.
Thank you very much and welcome to the public. If any person in attendance would like to be notified of future decisions or correspondence with regards to an item on tonight's agenda, please record your name and contact information on the sheet at the side of the room. The format we will follow this evening is as follows. We'll call up the applicant or their agent to outline their request. Committee members may then ask questions. Staff will provide an overview of any comments received on the application. The committee will hear from members of the public that wish to make a submission. The applicant/agent may provide follow-up information and answer questions. The committee members will put forward a recommendation. We'd ask that all comments please be respectful and related directly to planning matters relevant to the application. We will now proceed into the public meeting, starting with the first item on the agenda. And that would be LSRA 202302, Todd and Tanya Burlington, 966 Hemlock Island. Is anyone from the public here?
They're on the Zoom.
On Zoom? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Virtually tonight.
Thank you.
Some significant lag in our Zoom.
Okay.
Apologies, everyone. Technological difficulties.
Don't adjust your Okay,
progress.
Tanya Burlington, are you with us?
I think it's still working on it. Says that they're trying to connect their audio.
Okay, thank you.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi,
Hi, how you doing?
good.
Tanya, is it? Tanya
Yes.
Burlington?
Yes, it is.
Hey, I'm Terry Kelly. I'm chair of the committee, and the committee's waiting for your presentation on purchasing the road allowance.
Sorry, I'm late then. My husband said it was 7 o'clock. I was supposed to join in. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Tanya, is it? Tanya Burlington?
Yes, it is.
Hey, I'm Terry Kelly. I'm chair of the committee. The committee's waiting for,
She has the YouTube stream on in the background.
okay.
That's introduces the band. Tanya, can you please mute the YouTube stream in the background on your computer?
Yep, I'm trying to do that. Is it muted now?
I think so.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
Yes, so we purchased the property at 966 Hemlock. Can you hear me now? Are we good?
Yep, we're good.
Sorry. The reason we are interested in purchasing the shoreline allowance, is that what it's called? Is we are interested in building a little shed down by the water's edge. And we just figured if it was available to purchase, it would probably be a good idea. And something that we are interested in doing.
Okay. And how long have you, I'm just curious, how long have you been there, Tanya?
We only purchased it last September. We took possession September 1st last year.
Very good, thank you. Committee members, questions or any questions at all? It's been pretty straightforward, really. We've handled the Hemlock Island before.
I do have a curiosity question, actually. Tanya, are you aware of any of the other lots that have or individuals that have purchased their water frontage, the road allowance?
So I do know that it is becoming a little bit more popular. I don't know of any new people that have done it because I know that there have been a change in some ownerships of some of the properties. And we had in the past looked at another property and we wanted to build a storage shed down at the waterfront as well. And at that time, we did know that there were limitations with building property if you don't own the shoreline. So that's why once we purchase this property, we're going through this step first. And I know we do have to talk to the conservation area with their setbacks and all that kind of stuff as well. But purchasing the property was the first step in that.
My real reason for asking, I was just curious as much as anything about past, obviously we have closed up other lots on Hemlock Island, the water frontage road allowance. And I'm just curious if it was disruptive to the community or not.
I can't say anything about that. We are new. I mean, I know that around Hemlock Island, there was sort of the ability for everybody to sort of walk around the shore. And it's not like we would ever stop or impede anybody from doing that, because I have seen, you know, kids exploring the island, and I think that's great. So I would never do it for those kind of reasons. The reason why we want to purchase it is to be able to build something and do it within our legal rights.
I was just curious. Thank you.
Any other further questions? Staff overview, please.
Sure. So this application is very similar to other ones we've dealt with on Hemlock Island. There's no extenuating circumstances as far as environmental features or anything in our planning documents that we should specifically be aware of with regards to this property. We did receive comments from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. They indicated that they have no objection in principle to the sale. However, they did note that future development would be subject to their standard review process, which may include a DIA permit and subsequent review, which is standard for development within all proximity of the lakefront. And that is all the correspondence we received.
Okay, no correspondence from any adjoining property owners. Okay, anyone from the here to make any submission or any comments? Seeing none. In favor of this?
I'll move forward with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
By Bill and seconded by John.
Whereas a request has been made by Todd and Tanya Burlington to close and purchase the original shoreline road allowance abutting 966 Hemlock Island. And whereas bylaw number 2015-35 provides policies and procedures for the disposition of shoreline road allowances in the municipality of East Ferris. And whereas the request would comply with the policy set out in bylaw number 2015-35, therefore be it resolved that the request made by Todd and Tanya Burlington to close and purchase the original shoreline road allowance abutting 966 Hemlock Island be recommended to proceed in accordance with applicable regulations, policies, and procedures set out in bylaw number 2015-35.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Carried unanimous. Any further information for the Burlingtons?
Sure. So Mrs. Burlington, the next step in the process is this recommendation from this committee goes to council for a final decision. The next council meeting is on August 8th. So the recommendation will go before them then. And following that meeting, we'll be in touch with you with correspondence on next steps after that.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. So next we've got C 2023-03 1,328-150 Ontario Inc. Centennial Crescent. Just read this. An application is being received to amend the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2021-60 as amended. Proposed application is to rezone a parcel of land from existing rural zoning to a general commercial special zone. This application is being made in conjunction with a consent to sever application that would seek to create one new lot from the subject lands. The intent of the two applications is to allow the existing property to be severed into two commercial lots. Someone here representing? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Evening.
My name is Stephen Carter. I'm a contract planner with Geomatics Inc. And I'm here to represent this file this evening. Our clients are seeking to the property of the subject lands is across from what we refer to as Corville Corners. It would be the northeast corner of the land across from the gas station where the communication tower is. Our clients wish to build a 3,000 square foot animal wellness center with an 800 square foot kennel associated with that use. In order to do that, the property needs to be rezoned. We're proposing that the property as a whole be rezoned this evening, at least brought forward for consideration. And if I could point you quickly to a couple of sections of the official plan that support this. The section 5.2.5 specifically speaks to this property in your official plan. And it reads a strategic note for commercial development. While villages will remain the primary focus of new commercial development, commercial uses in the rural area will be permitted. A strategic note for commercial development is the intersection of Highway 94 and 17. So within the official plan, it speaks to the use. It also speaks further to the use of the kennel under 529, which it speaks to how it has potential for conflict with neighboring properties. And so there's a consideration through the site plan control agreement to make sure there's adequate buffering, noise barriers and things like that. We address that. And then lastly, the entrance to the property has already been well established from the MTO occupied the land, so as part of the reconstruction of that intersection. It's well built, and our proposal is to use that as a common entrance to these two properties. We're proposing to create one on the back 40, if you will, for the animal wellness center and kennels, and then the front portion would be for future commercial use. Rezoning that at this time allows our clients to then consider projects as they come forward, and there's that potential opportunity there on that corner. We did do a pre-consultation with the Ministry of Transportation, who gave us some preliminary comments back. And they are comfortable proceeding with the zoning on the kennel portion and the animal wellness center portion. They've had comments about the future use of the commercial block, which we can speak to when the planning services staff need comments into record, make some recommendations there. Okay, so it's in our opinion, it's in conformity with your official plan. There's no matters of provincial interest, and our clients are very anxious to get building. We hope that the committee will support.
Okay,
I can answer any questions.
thank you, Steve. Questions from this committee? I had one. I missed the square footage on the kennels, please.
It's 800 square feet.
800 square feet. Thank you.
Basically, similar use to the main goal.
Okay. Okay. Tara, have questions?
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm of the same mindset. It looks pretty straightforward to me. I know there's a few comments.
A lot of land involved. Baselines. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
We did get an additional email this afternoon from the MTO regarding the entrance. Is there any change to what Mr. Thompson was saying?
Yes. Would you like me to go ahead and?
Please, yes.
First one?
Staff review. Yeah, nobody has any questions before we. That's correct. Okay. Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, so I guess firstly, with regard to my staff report, I'll just touch on that briefly. I mean, a lot of what's in my staff report are points that Mr. MacArthur already brought up in this presentation. But really the primary driving factor behind the application here is the fact that this node of the two highways is specifically identified in our official plan as an area for commercial development. We don't have too many sites that are specifically referred to as like prime development targets for types of development. So I think it quite clearly supports commercial development here. So it's more just looking at some of the specifics on how to achieve that. So with regards to the MTO's comments specifically, those came in after we circulated the agenda last Friday. So I'll read them in somewhat detail. Just for those of you who didn't get a chance to review, but the MTO, so they say the MTO acknowledges the client proposes consent and rezoning applications to create two commercial lots on the vacant property of the northeast quadrant of Highway 1794 Centennial Crescent. The future use for the northeasterly proposed severed lot is the development of a veterinary clinic and kennel. The proposed severed lot on the southern half has no plan on it and no use contemplated at this time. Access for the two lots in development is proposed in the form of a mutually shared right-of-way to the existing entrance on Centennial Crescent. The current entrance location does not meet MTO's desirable offset criteria for a private entrance to commercial development from a major provincial highway. However, we do recognize that the access options are limited and that commercial development of this node around Highway 1794 intersection is contemplated by the East Ferris Township's official plan. The MTO will work with the developer in the township to find a common solution. The MTO will not grant an access connection to Highway 17. The MTO has some concern around fragmenting the property on the premise of future development. The reason being is without adequate assessment of future development, they can't support it from a traffic and safety perspective. So as such, we propose to proceed with the rezoning of the lot where the commercial use has been identified, veterinary clinic and kennel. The proposed severed lot on the southern half, they would request remain as is. They say this approach would provide an opportunity for a more fulsome review of the proposed use at the time once the southerly lot is developed. And then they go on to list the criteria that would be required. The MTO has a standard set of things that they ask for when it comes to traffic impact study, stormwater management plan, et cetera. So they list the technical requirements beyond that. And that's pretty much the full review of their comment. So really, I mean, Mr. McCarthy and I talked about this a little bit beforehand. And when it comes to the MTO's comments, their main concern in my eyes is that they have a review opportunity to do their stormwater management review, do their traffic impact or assessment review. I don't really see the need to delay zoning on half of the property to accommodate that. So some of the committee members may remember in the past, we've used something called a holding zone. So I think this would be a prime example of where a holding zone would be effective. Basically what a holding zone is you zone an entire property, let's say, and you can keep a portion of it as a general commercial holding. And what that means is you can't issue any building permits or you can't do anything on that portion of the lot until you meet the conditions specified in the holding. This is something we've done this on different subdivision applications in the past where we've had like phase 1 and phase 2 to a subdivision. And so the section that was holding, the condition of the age, the removal of the age was that 75% of permits needed to be issued on phase 1. As an example, and that allows the whole zoning exercise to complete. Still gives that measure of control for the MTO or for whatever mechanism we want. So what I would kind of suggest that we consider here is we go through with the zoning as requested for the whole property. However, beyond the draft bylaw that was circulated, we make an amendment to that and put a holding zone on the retained lands or the southern lands. And the condition of the removal of the age basically be that the sign off on the fact that they've received an adequate traffic impact study, stormwater management plan, et cetera. And I think that kind of simplifies the process because it prevents the need for us to have to do this again. I mean, we've identified this as a primary strategic commercial node in our plan. And we know that the concern is those studies and those MTO permits. So to me, this is a way to not have to go through this planning process again, but still give the MTO the control they need.
And that would allow the developer to go ahead with the construction of the kennels and the wellness center for.
Yes, it would allow them to go ahead with the one that we all agree is suitable, and it would still give us the ability to review their future plans on the retained lands.
Any comments from the committee? Questions?
Good.
Yes. I think it is. I agree with you. Everybody's okay? So
How would the recommendation read? Gary?
Yeah, if I can get a mover in a seconder, I can read the resolution. Bill, just to put it on the floor.
Read before I.
Just to put it on the floor, we'll put the motion on the floor. Whereas the landowners of the lands described as concession 13, part lot 14, RPNR 83, part 1, and what is locally known as Centennial Crescent, has applied to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2021-60 to rezone a parcel of land from the existing rural zone to general commercial special zone. And whereas the application is being made in conjunction with a consent to sever application that would seek to create one new lot from the subject lands. And whereas the application is consistent with Provincial Policy Statement 2020, and whereas the application is in conformity with the policies contained within the official plan for the municipality, therefore be it resolved that the application for zoning bylaw amendment be recommended for approval.
all in favor?
Probably one thing that not to the holdings on.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it's.
So we'll pass the amendment now then.
So at the end, we should we should add that in addition, a holding zone be to the lands identified as the retained lands in application
So
the 2023-14.
There's one additional great reason to do that. Your committee's done the work in terms of
Yes.
and removing the holdings from the act council. So when all those conditions are satisfied, write a report that says you're satisfied and you can sign on. And it goes to council to remove the holdings on. So it saves our client time and money and
We're just holding a portion until all the conditions are met. But the other part of it is you're free to go ahead with development according to the statutes.
Geo has been great to work with in this particular instance. Very helpful.
I was really happy to hear personally that the fact that they're willing to work with you on the development. So that's super. Any other comments, Frank?
That was the only reason I was asking how was.
Sure.
And into it, there's not. Prior to me voting for it, so.
Everybody's in favor? We'll do it once more time. Okay, that's great. So it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. So that concludes our meeting. I need someone mover and seconder for adjournment, please.
The planning advisory committee meeting adjourn at 6:06 p.m.
All in favor? Thank you. Other meeting will start in 4 minutes. Okay. Okay, call the meeting to order at 7:01. Can I have a mover and seconder for the adoption of the agenda, please? All right, John.
The draft agenda presented to the committee and dated July 19th, 2023, be hereby adopted as circulated.
All in favor? Yep. And mover and seconder to accept the minutes of the previous meeting, please. Steve and Tara.
The minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting of June 21st, 2023, be adopted as circulated.
All in favor? Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Chair's comments. Good evening and welcome to this evening's Committee of Adjustment meeting. The Council of the Municipality of East Ferris has empowered this committee to make decisions on minor variants and consent to sever applications on their behalf. Made up of 5 citizen members and 2 members of the council. Members are as follows. Tara, would you start off, please?
Bill
Boak. Steve Austin.
Carrie Hanselman, staff.
Terry Kelly, council.
Greg Curtin, staff.
John Simmons.
Lauren Roy Akers on council.
Frank Harvey.
Thank you very much and welcome to everyone. As required under the Planning Act and pursuant to policy, the committee is holding a public meeting prior to making a decision on the proposed applications. The Committee of Adjustment has not yet made any decisions on these matters, and all comments received prior to this evening's meeting, as well as comments received tonight during the meeting, will be considered in the decision. The committee makes our decisions based on the criteria outlined in the Planning Act that corresponds to the specific application type. The process will be as follows. I will ask the applicant to present their application in the order listed on the agenda. The committee will ask any questions they have of the applicant. Staff will then provide their comments about the application and give an overview of correspondence that's been received. Members of the public will present and answer questions if needed. We will allow a 10-minute maximum time limit on all public comments to the committee. We will then move to a motion to approve or refuse the application. We'd ask that everyone be respectful in their presentations and comments should be related directly to the application. If any committee members have a conflict of interest with regards to any items on tonight's agenda, would they please declare it now? We will now move to the first item on the agenda, which is 2023-14 and B 2023-15, 1328, 150 Ontario Inc., Centennial Crescent. Purpose of the request consent applications are to allow for the creation of 1 new lot for commercial purposes, as well as to establish a mutually shared access easement that would allow both the severed and retained lands to be served by the existing driveway on Centennial Crescent. This application is being made in conjunction with a zoning bylaw amendment application that would seek to rezone a parcel of land from the existing rural zoning to a general special commercial zone. Is someone here representing Steve once again? You're a busy guy tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, for the record, Steve Carter, Senior Planner with Geomatics Inc. The only thing I would add to what you read is that, as we heard from the MTO comments in the previous zoning bylaw on this kind of application, there was concern about driveway entrance. So this is a good solution. If anyone is familiar with the actual site out there, that the entrance to the property is well designed and well constructed. It's very solid, and it's set as far away from the highway as possible. So the proposal is to use that as a mutual driveway entrance for the 2 parcels. Register that on title in favor of the retained and so. Happy to answer any other questions.
Good. No questions, John? Warren? Frank?
So with this driveway being a mutual driveway, MTO is satisfied with that?
Yeah, they recognize that there is a challenge getting an entrance into that property, and they further recognize that they can't not have access. So they ironically are the ones who built the entrance some time ago as part of their construction project around the interchange. And clients were lucky enough to inherit it, and we proposed that it stay and they accept that. In principle. There's details to the site plan and others to work out.
Any further questions, Frank? Okay, Tara?
No. Nothing here.
Steve, you're okay. I'm fine, thank you. Overview, please.
Sure. I'll add one additional piece of correspondence actually. So this came in later this afternoon by the MTO also after the detailed comments we all received. It was not circulated to the applicant actually, but it's short, so I'll just read it into the record. They say the MTO is supportive of this severance application. The client will need to apply for an entrance permit via the MTO's Highway Corridor Management Online Services. An entrance permit will be issued to the severed lot upon receipt of confirmation that the severance has been perfected and the severed lot exists. MTO cannot issue a permit for a lot that does not exist until the severance is perfected. The client or future buyer of the severed lot may also need to apply for a building permit and land use permit. To determine this, a site plan should be submitted to the MTO for assessment prior to the commencement of any development. Please direct any permitting questions to Diane Villeneuve, Corridor Management Officer at diane.villeneuve@ontario.ca. So the MTO is supportive in principle of the severance. Their just main issue was what we discussed with the rezoning about the future development.
Okay, thank you. Any members of the public want to talk on this subject? Seeing none. Sorry.
Things come to mind. The existing entrance I see here is on the new development thing. There will be an easement to get to across that land to get to the other.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
The easement will be in favor of, retained,
This question's for Greg. Typically we need a certain frontage, road frontage. I know it's in commercial, does it follow the different set of rules, guidelines?
No, so the frontage meets the minimum on this one. Yeah. And especially the retained land has frontage all along Highway 17 as well. But the severed land does have the minimum. It just meets it. So there's no issues with that from a bylaw perspective. But both will come through the severed lands.
Okay, Bill. Okay, any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'll ask for a mover and seconder, please.
Bill and Frank.
Okay.
File number B 2023-14 and B 2023-15. The applicant is requesting consent to sever from the Committee of Adjustment for the purpose of creating one new lot for commercial purposes, as well as to establish a mutually shared access easement that would allow both the severed and retained lands to be severed by the existing driveway on Centennial Crescent. We, the undersigned, in making the decision upon this application, have considered whether or not the requested consent is in conformity with the policies laid out in the East Ferris official plan and consistent with the requirements of section 51, subsection 24 of the Planning Act. Concur in the following decision and reasons for decision on the 19th day of July 2023 for each application. That confirmation is provided that all taxes are paid, that a plan of survey is prepared and filed with the municipality, that a plan of survey be sent electronically to the municipality of East Ferris Director of Community Services, that the applicant pays $250 in finalization fees per consent application prior to the transfer of the parcel of land, that the applicant is required to pay $1,250 per consent application to the municipality of East Ferris for the parkland dedication fee prior to the transfer of the severed lands. For file B 2023-14 only, the transfer of land is submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the issuance of the certificate of consent under section 53, subsection 42 of the Planning Act. Prior to the endorsement of the transfer, the owner grants simply unto the municipality of East Ferris, free of any charges, all lands measured 10 meters from the center line of any existing publicly maintained road along the full length of the owner's total holdings being the subject of this consent, and that all conditions are fulfilled within 2 years from the date the notice of decision has been given. Otherwise, this provisional consent will lapse and the application for consent shall be deemed to be refused as per section 53, subsection 41 of the Planning Act.
All in favor? Yes, thank you. So we'll now go to 2023, B 2023-12 and B 2023-13, Ken Smithard, 479 Nosbonsing Park Road. The applicant's requesting a consent to allow for the creation of 2 new lots for residential purposes. Someone here representing,
So the applicant, indicated to us that they'd be attending virtually. They're not currently in the waiting room. I just sent them an email while Ferris was reading the last resolution. So I think that's if we push them to the end of the agenda and,
sure.
and if they don't show up, we can decide how to proceed then.
Okay. In that case, we'll go to B 2023-16 and 272334 Ontario Limited, 1063 Highway 94. The applicant requesting a consent to allow for a lot addition to the adjacent property on Highway 94. No new lots would be created. And someone's present. Thank you.
My name is Susan Rohrer. I am Appleton Road. Many of you, I'm sure know.
We do. Thank you, Susan. Welcome.
Don is the owner operator of the plastic holders on Highway 3. As you're aware, it's a fairly large piece of property. Adjacent to that at 1033, just going to sign the number. Don also owns a sliver of land at 1033 Highway. What he's looking for is to take a portion of the property that he owns for the company that he runs, sever a portion of that off the tax, so that it's 33, so that he may construct his deed. We are in the process of working with the architect and locating that proper building on that site with the anticipation that it's the stays there adjacent to company that he's letting sweat into. The property itself has a lot of variability on it. Don is very environmentally conscious. It will be built with that in mind. There will be a lot of light let in, so it will be a real showpiece for the community in terms of place and take benefit of nature as it's surrounded. Don obviously keeps his property tucked away there. Most people don't know that he runs a worldwide company back there. And that's his objective, is to keep it set back, quiet, and tucked back in. It will be a real talked about place, I think, when we get it finished, because it is nature. So he's looking to sever a portion of his existing property attached to the personal piece and begin construction on this current.
Yeah, I see. Just looking at, there's no additional property being picked up, just a severance.
Just severing it back into a personal piece.
Very good. Any questions from the committee? John, seeing none. Warren? Frank?
Actually, if you're working with the architect to just plan the house,
Where he's designing a home that's an ancient place. So John Rock is still his own home on Sunny, and it also is an ancient place. Yeah, so we're working with Shannon.
but we have the locations of pieces of property that you want to tax.
So if you look at the piece, you can see that Don's business is like L-shaped. It goes tucks in behind the parts that are on the highway. So there's the portion of the company property that comes out to the highway, and then there's a little sliver beside that. That's the piece that Don owns personally. And that would be extended backwards. So the house would be built well back, about 800 feet or so back from the highway. And it will be tucked back into the trees in the back. He's been in touch with the neighbor next door, has no issues with his plan. He's quite in lots of communication around, had no issue with the most part.
And it is set well back, because you could be driving down the road, you'd never know what was back there.
People don't know that
True.
the company back there is
Yep.
manufacturing products that are shipped worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. Additional questions, Frank?
Not right now, okay.
Okay. Tara, yourself? Bill?
Nope.
Steve? No. Staff overview?
Sure, very quickly. So the applicant is proposing a lot addition as they described. After the lot addition is completed, the property will far exceed our minimum requirements for size and zoning bylaw. the front portion, not where the North Bay Plastic Molars business is, but all the front portion is zoned rural, so residential uses are permitted in that area. So the portion that's subject to lot addition would permit a detached home to be built. The North Bay Madawa Conservation Authority did a site visit. They indicated that there's ample room for a septic system to be installed on the property, and indicated no other concerns. And that is the only correspondence we received.
Okay, thank you. Members of the public, any comments at all?
Thank you.
Oh, there you go. A positive comment. Well done. You're welcome back to be part of the public anytime. So. Can I have a movement and seconder, please?
Number B 2023-16, the applicant is requesting consent to sever for the committee of adjustment for the purpose of a lot addition from 1063 Highway 94 to the adjacent property at 1033 Highway 94. We, the undersigned, in making the decision upon this application, have considered whether or not the requested consent is in conformity with the policies laid out in the East Ferris official plan and consistent with the requirements of section 51, subsection 24 of the Planning Act. Confer in the following decision and reasons for decision on the 19th day of July 2023 that the requested consent for lot addition be approved conditional upon the following. Confirmation is provided that all tax fees are paid up to date, that a plan of survey is prepared and filed with the municipality, that a plan of survey be sent electronically to the municipality of East Ferris Director of Community Services, that the applicant pays $250 in finalization fees per consent application prior to the transfer of the parcel of land, that the transfer of land is submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the issuance of the certificate of consent. Prior to the endorsement of the land, the owner grants simply unto the municipality of East Ferris free of any charges all lands measured 10 meters from the center line of any existing publicly maintained road along the full length of the owner's total holdings. And that all conditions will be filled within 2 years from the date the notice of decision has been given, otherwise this provisional consent will lapse.
All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good presentation.
Thanks a lot.
I really appreciate it, council, does that business and job around here. And everybody welcome to visit anytime. And want to show what we can do around here. Appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you, Donald. Appreciate it. And appreciate your efforts of keeping East Ferris front and center. Next, we have A 202307 Robert Chatterpaul, pardon me, 16 Pargeter. The applicant's requesting a minor variance to permit an increase in accessory structure height to 6.6 meters, whereas zoning bylaw 2021-60 permits 6 meters. So you're looking for an extra decimal 6 meters.
Yes. Thank you, Councilman, or Mr. Chair and Council. I'm a little nervous, so.
This is a very informal setting and we've got a really good committee, so.
Okay,
Okay.
so my name is Rob Chatterpaul. We bought the property about 20 years ago. It's now my residence as of June 15th, and that's why we're adding the garage. I've had quite a few little hiccups with the garage so far. We made a change halfway through, and which brings me here. I didn't realize that the change of height, when you add the dormer, you change the height. So it was my mistake, it's someone else's. So I'm asking for a minor variance for that.
Okay, any questions from the committee?
Maybe a comment. I did the same thing. So. So. Before. Yeah.
Sure, we could attach it to the house, and every way I looked at it, I needed a variance. There was no way around it. A side variance, attaching to. But yeah, I really hope I need that.
Okay, Frank, you have a question?
I'm good.
Okay, Lauren, you're okay? Well, obviously you're okay. It goes without saying, right? Steve, how about you? No, you're good. Tara, you're good. Okay. All I'll say is welcome to the neighborhood. Oh, yeah. Good. So you're there full time.
Full time.
Fantastic.
June 15th, so that's all.
Okay, staff overview?
Yes, there's not too much to add. It was honestly just a really unfortunate situation, as the applicant kind of alluded to. So the way the height provisions in our zoning bylaw work is we measure it to the midpoint between the peak and the eaves on a roof line. And if you have multiple roof lines, it can change where you measure specific height locations to. So in this case, there were dormers that were added on just portions of the roof line through the construction process. And although the overall main structure of the roof is actually below our bylaw provision requirements, the dormers, because the eaves are higher, raise the overall height, and that pushed them over. And so really the point of these provisions with height and floor area are to make sure you don't have structures that are overly massive and imposing on neighboring properties, et cetera. And it's really hard to say that a couple dormers that are a little bit higher do that, right? So yeah, I think it is totally appropriate in the context of minor variance.
Obviously, there was no comments from the neighbors.
We received no correspondence on this file, yeah.
It's.
And I did talk to a few of the neighbors. Sure.
Okay.
You know, if there's any issues and.
Oh, good. That's good. That's always good to do, seriously.
Yeah.
That's good, yeah, definitely. Okay, everybody's in favor? Could we do motion, please move it a second, please. Pardon me. Go vote and Tara.
File number 2023-07, the applicant is seeking a minor variance to permit an increase in accessory structure height to 6.6 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw is 6 meters. We, the undersigned, in making the decision upon this application, have considered whether or not variance requested was minor for the appropriate development and use of the land, and that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan will be maintained. Concur in the following decision and reasons for decision on the 19th day of July 2023, that the requested variance to permit the increase in accessory structure to 6.6 meters be approved.
All in favor?
Thank you very much. Really appreciate everything. I didn't go any further anymore. I didn't even put the roof on. I said, let's just wait till tonight. Well, we actually have to take the roof off now to get these beams in there. So
That's good. It's gonna rain tomorrow. I mean, you know.
it's my fault, and I'll pay the price. But thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Take care. So that brings us back to
Yes,
2023-12. Are they here?
we do have the applicant.
Fantastic. That's great. Mr. Smithard.
Looks, we may have a bit of a delay in having. I think the issues are on our end, so we'll get.
Yeah, sure, no question. Yep. Yep.
Thanks, Ian.
Oh.
It could have been anything. Could have written anything before. I've been down
Yeah.
yeah, what, no, it'll be a mountain.
Yeah, go straight.
When I was a boy. Fox and stuff. I thought it yeah, it's actually good. Small bus. Mr. Smith, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine, thank you. Welcome.
Sorry, I apologize. I was on the Zoom call and I couldn't click over fast enough when you called my name last time.
Not a problem. It's good to see you. Technology is wonderful.
Mhm.
So the applicant's requesting a consent to allow for the creation of 2 new lots for residential purposes. Would you like to state your application, please? Just give us an
Sure.
just give us an overview, if you would.
Yep, sure. So I'm the property owner at 479 Nosponsing Park Road. The existing property is approximately 27 acres. And I'm requesting to sever 2 lots at the southern end of the property. They both meet the requirements in terms of 2 acres per lot and the appropriate frontage, road frontage. And neither lot will have water access to Lake Nosponsing, so there'll be road access only.
So they will not have any impact on the lake, is that correct?
Correct.
Very good. Anything in addition to that? That's it?
That's the high level summary. Yep. If there's
Very
any
good.
questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Open it to the committee. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Smithard? Okay. John, no? Warren? Frank? Just one question. Are you including hydrological studies so you're not impacting other wells?
I haven't done that work yet, but I'm happy to do that if that's a requirement.
But I'll ask for staff overview.
But
Thank you.
so both my property and my neighbor's property are like in excess of 25 acres. So these 2 lots are not close to any existing or proposed wells that, like, my neighbor has done their well and septic, and I've done my well and septic, and these 2 lots are sufficiently far away.
Okay, thank you. Overview, please.
Sure, I'll go through a couple of things. I'll just briefly comment first on the requirements for hydrogeological studies when it comes to development.
Okay.
Generally, the threshold where we start to require things like that, based on provincial legislation as well as the policies in our official plan, is when you get to 5 or more lots. That being said, we did just recently do an 8 lot subdivision in the last 5 years on the west side of Nosponsing Park Road, just a little bit up from this property, and there were no concerns with water availability through the studies we received in that. It's not the exact same area, but when those studies are done, they do a desktop exercise looking at well records of all the lots in the kind of general vicinity. You have kind of some assurance that there should be no impact on the water table based on 2 new lots. Additionally, the applicant already mentioned, but their lots do meet the minimum size. They're 2 acres and 60 meters of frontage, or 200 feet. They do not touch the waterfront. They're actually somewhere between 200 and 300 meters away from the shoreline. The applicant's property is very deep, so these lots will be situated well water. The North Bay Manitoba Conservation Authority commented on the file as well. They indicated they did a site visit to both the proposed lots and the retained lands. They indicated no concerns on any of either of the 2 severed lots or the retained lands with respect to the ability to put a septic system on any of them, and they had no concerns with the proposal. Ultimately, I think this application is in line with the development policies in our official plan. We allow this type of development. We set minimum standards that we deem to be appropriate for new lot development, and this application meets those standards. So I have no objection from a staff perspective.
Any further questions from the committee? Either towards Greg or Mr. Smith, or no? Okay. Could you really have a mover and a seconder, please?
File number B 2023-12 and B 2023-13. The applicant is requesting consent to sever from the Committee of Adjustment for the purpose of creating 2 new lots from the property at 479 Nosponsing Park Road. We, the undersigned, in making the decision upon this application, have considered whether or not the requested consent is in conformity with the policies laid out in the East Ferris plan and consistent with the requirements of section 51, subsection 24 of the Planning Act. Concur the following decision and reasons for decision on the 19th day of July 2023. For the requested consent to create 2 new additional lots we approved, conditional on the following for each application. Confirmation is provided that all taxes are paid up to date, that a plan of survey is prepared and filed with the municipality, A plan of survey be sent electronically to the municipality of East Ferris Director of Community Services. That the applicant pays $250 in finalization fees per consent application prior to the transfer of the parcel of land. That the applicant is required to pay $1,250 per consent application to the municipality of East Ferris for the parkland dedication fee. That the transfer of land is submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the issuance of the certificate of consent. That prior to the endorsement of the transfer, the owner grants simply into the municipality of East Ferris, free of any charges, all lands measured 10 meters from the center line of any existing publicly maintained road along the full length of the owner's total holdings. And that all conditions must be filled within 2 years from the date the notice of decision has been given, otherwise this provisional consent will lapse.
Mr. Smith, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Very good. All in favor? Thank you very much. Anything further, Greg, for Mr. Smithard?
Sure. So Mr. Smithard, we'll be in touch with you in the next few days with a copy of the decision from tonight's committee meeting, and it'll have details on the appeal period and when the finalization takes place, as well as what conditions you need to satisfy to get final approval for your application.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Any correspondence? We have a mover and a seconder for adjournment, please.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Prior to adjourning, I was just wondering if we could have a discussion. Once we're adjourned, with regards to questions that we have.
Sure. After we're adjourned, I've got no problem with it, Frank. Anybody? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we shouldn't adjourn if the whole committee is gonna be here and discuss something. We should keep the meeting open.
Go on the camera.
Only if it's an identifiable.
Yeah,
I'm a little confused in regards to, and I know we've discussed it once before, in regards to severance and lot addition. And in my small little mind, that's two applications. They're applying to sever, then they're applying for lot addition. Sorry, I'm concerned. Am I wrong in saying that?
We can definitely go over it. Maybe before we get into it, maybe we'll just let Mr. Smithard go.
Sure.
I think we're getting into another section, but
Okay, I will drop off the call. Thank you. Good evening.
Yeah. No need to go on camera for this, Frank. It's just, it's basically correspondence inside the committee. That's
Yeah.
my opinion.
I think if we have anything that's like another business item or like a training kind of point of clarification type issue, I think it's fine to just discuss it like this. As far as the point about lot addition versus severance. So when an application is made, you have a consent to sever application, and that applies to one property. So if I own a property and I want to change the lot boundaries in some way, I have to make an application associated with my one property. If I'm creating a new lot, let's say that I want to sell to you, I don't need to make another application in order to finalize that sale to you. Like you know when we have like any let's say kind of straightforward property owner comes in, wants to create one new lot. There's one application to create that lot, but we don't have anything else associated with it to like allow someone else to buy it or take possession. To try to think about it the same way for a lot addition. So we have one application that comes in for a property, and the piece of land that they have defined as what they're severing, instead of becoming a standalone lot, it's just merging with another property, but it's still just that process of disposing that parcel that you've identified to another owner or to another kind of location. So whether or not that parcel that you're severing is being added to another lot or standalone lot that's transferred to another owner or someone else, it's one application in both cases. Does that make sense?
So is this something that's always been in existence, or is it something that's changed in the last 7 years, 8 years?
It's something that's been this way my entire career. I'm not sure if maybe it's been different at some other point, but
I'm asking to do that. I went through the same process.
Mhm.
I severed a piece of property between myself and my neighbor.
Yeah.
We severed it in half. I had to make application for the severance. And I had to make application for the lot addition, because I had half of that other lot became mine and the other half became his, and he had to do the same.
Okay, so I think a likely scenario, something that may be comparable, what I'm guessing happened anyways is, do you remember when we did the file for the former Wheelers property? So at the corner of Astorville Road and Lake Osmondson Road? So when we did that, was that last year or 2 years ago? Anyways, there were two properties next door. And imagine they were kind of like this, and they were almost like Tetris pieces. Like they had like overlapping pieces. And what they wanted to do in the case of the Wheelers property was straighten that lot boundary. But in order to do that, since both of their properties kind of wrapped around each other, they were severing in two locations and doing two separate lot additions. So I'm wondering if in your case you had to straighten up the property boundary, but you were actually taking parts off of both of your lots and adding them to each other.
So it was a vacant lot that was sold to both my neighbor and I, but in order to do that, we had to sever it and go through.
You split the property.
I mean, if you had your paperwork, I'd be happy to take a look at it with you.
And that's why I can't get in my mind where we are today as being one application as opposed to two.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way we've been doing it for the past 5 years with this committee that I've been managing it, and I've never seen it run differently in any of the municipalities I've worked in or any other planning department for that matter. So yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to look at your paperwork with you and try to kind of make sense of it, but
Yeah, no, like I'm not concerned about that. I mean, that was that's done and over with. I'm just concerned with, not concerned, just trying to get clarification. My mind, this one or two applications.
Yeah, I would say try to think of it as any new piece that you're creating requires a new application, generally speaking. So the actual like end use of that piece, whether it be a new lot or a lot addition, doesn't necessarily matter as much. It's just that that function of creating a new piece is what triggers the requirement for a severance.
You were actually adding.
Sorry?
You were adding, whereas the applications like, for Donald, he was just using his own property, but he was severing it. He wasn't adding anything, he was just taking a lot. You were adding actually to your existing property.
And so it's he.
Yeah, he was adding to his other property.
The other property, yes, that's true.
But yeah.
Okay.
I see the point. I see the difficulty here because generally there's a transaction that's going on. I'm severing this piece of my land I'm selling that piece of land.
Yeah.
Well, I can't physically sell it till it's been severed. So then the sale happens and then the addition happens. So I can see where it needs to be separated.
So it happens, it all happens simultaneously. So when the sale happens, like your lawyer, like imagine a scenario where I'm severing a piece and I'm selling it to you. When we draft the paperwork, sale to take place, the lawyer drafts it in a way that the lot gets created, the sale closes, the transfer happens to you, the merger happens all at the same time when they register it. Because with a lot addition, for example, we put a condition on our lot addition that it can't be completed unless it's being merged with the recipient property. So because of the way that, well, there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we don't want people creating orphan properties that are landlocked from the road or from other areas. So the lawyer has to draft that agreement in a way that all executes at the same
point in time.
Yeah.
So when we agree a severance,
yeah,
it's actually in that situation, it's on hold until the transaction happens.
Usually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions?
But we can whip this to death, but I'm gonna ask one more.
Okay.
So you're severing a piece of property. And I'm buying a severance. I already have the piece of property beside you.
Yeah.
Is it automatic that it's my lot addition? Or do I make an application that for a lot addition?
No, so the application gets made by the property owner that the severance is taking place on.
Right.
So if you're purchasing a piece of land from me as a lot addition, I would make the application because my land is the land that's being severed. So think about it this way, say I own a property and you own a property and there's no severances and you're buying a property from me to add to your property. Is there any severance application being made? No, you just buy it and then you merge it with your land.
That's right.
So it's the same product. Yes, right. But if I'm cutting a piece of my property off, that's where the severance application comes in. Because I need to apply for permission from the municipality to create that new parcel. And then we apply a condition to the severance that requires it gets merged with the buyer's lands. So that's where the severance comes in, that actual physical act of creating a new part for my land. But if you're buying my whole property and merging it with yours, you just go to the lawyer and make that happen. Yeah. So it's kind of the same idea. Once that part's being created through severance, then you don't need another application to execute the merger.
Okay. There's my.
Yeah.
So
I fully understand.
mover and seconder for adjournment, please. Bill and Tara.
The Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourned at 7:42 PM.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Everybody enjoy this. We're meeting in August again.
Take care.
Take care, yeah.
Be on this council or committee like in 3 years, so you could apply to be on this committee in 3 years. Yeah.